Hey there, everybody. Today, we'll be working with this RHCSA exam objective, which has to do with adjusting passwords and password aging. So, it all mainly boils down to using the password and chage command, or as I like to call it, the chage command. So we'll go over that first and then do a little bit of experimenting with it. After that, I'd also like to show you how you can set some system-wide password expiry defaults, and as a bonus at the end, I'll also expose you to a little bit of how you would go about setting rules for password quality. So we have a lot of cool stuff to cover, so let's do this. Okay, so first of all, make sure that you're logged in as root or using the sudo command as needed. I already have a root shell here, so I'm good to go. And I'll need a user now to work with, so let me go ahead and add a user I'll call Zebra for this demo. And I'll do that with the good old user add command. And next what I'll want to do is give this user a password. So I'm sure many of you are already familiar with this. We'll just run password Zebra, and then I'll set a password. Cool. Now let's go ahead and adjust the password aging parameters for this account. So we can do that with the chage command. So let's use chage to list what's currently going on with this account with chage --list zebra. And as you can see, this password isn't expiring anytime soon. In fact, a lot of this stuff is set to the never value, which is normal. This is the default behavior on RHEL. And just for later, I'll also pull out the corresponding line to this information from etc shadow with a little grep command. So I'll just run grep zebra in etc shadow. There we go. And so this will just be for our reference because I want to do some comparisons in a moment. And there's my password hash, by the way, if you ever feel like cracking it. But what I really want to point out here is this last section, where it talks about storing the password policy information for this account. Okay, so I just want to let you know first, when we're using the chage command, that we can do it in interactive mode by just running chage and then the account username, so that's just Zebra, and then nothing else. If you do this, it will run in an interactive mode where you can enter in the settings live. And I mean, this is okay if you're just working with a handful of accounts, but it doesn't exactly scale up too well. So with that in mind, if you have many accounts, it's a much better idea to pass your settings as arguments instead. And I'll be sure to show you both ways, so we'll just run chage zebra interactively first. Okay, and now it's time to start punching in some settings. So to start, with the minimum password age, also known as min days, this is how many days you need to wait before changing your password again. So let's be generous for Zebra and just set this to 1 day. And then next, for maximum password age, also known as max days, this is basically asking for the number of days from the password last changed that this password will be usable. So if you exceed this date, you won't necessarily be locked out forever, you'll just be forced to change your password, that's all. So let's make that 3 days for this example, why not? And then for the last password change, like I was just talking about, we can leave that as today, which is not the 16th. In fact, that is a little bit weird. That's because chage is using universal time, but it's the 15th in Eastern time. So we'll go over that discrepancy in just a moment. Anyways, so next for the warning, let's give a 14-day heads up to Zebra that they need to change their password. So I'll just do that. And next for password inactivity, this is how you can specify the number of days of inactivity after the password expires that the account should be locked out. So let's set this to 5 days, why not? And then finally, for account expiration date, we can just set this to some time way out in the future, like next month. So I can just do 2023, March 10th, sure. And now we're done. Okay, so that was pretty cool. And now if I run that grep command again, we can see here that the information in this last part has changed to what we just set up. Pretty neat. And here's what the values used to be. Just want to highlight that for you. Also, here's a quick trick to get a future date, by the way. For example, if I was doing the expiry date and I didn't feel like calculating what the date would be 64 days from now, what I could do is just run date-d plus 64 days, and this is going to tell me what the date would be 64 days from now. So this is like a nice shortcut for that. Okay. You can also give formats to the date command, by the way. Like I can do %y plus %y, %m, %d, like that. I think a shorthand for this is just %f, and that works too. And yeah, that's how you can format the date. Okay, and while I'm at it, let me just clarify that universal time thing. So if I run date and then date-u, so this is the time currently in Eastern, and this is UTC. So this is what chage is actually going by. So it's the 16th in UTC. So that's why that was happening. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing with chage in the non-interactive mode. So as always, we have the man page for chage because nobody wants to memorize all of these options. So yeah, here they are. It's all pretty intuitive, especially if you use the long form version as opposed to the shorthand, which I think is kind of vague. So I already have these in my head, so I'm good to go. So I'll just run chage zebra and then --min days. And let's go ahead and set it to the same stuff we just did here. So I'll set min days to 1, --max days to 3, --last day. That's the last password change date. And I'll set that to 2023-02-16. And then the password expiration warning, so that's --warn days. And I'll set that to 14. And then password inactive, so that's --inactive. Set that to 5. And then the expiration date, so that's just --expire date. And I'll set that to March 10th. And if I did everything right, we should have no problem. Okay, cool. So now I'll run that grep command again from before, and it should look exactly the same as this one. And it does, so that's fantastic. Okay. What we'll do now is just test out the configuration we just made. So of course, one way to just analyze it is just to run chage-l zebra, and this just tells us what we already know. The password is going to expire on the 19th, and the account is only going to last until the 10th of March. Like, we already knew that, we set that up. But let's actually try to log into this account and work with it from there. So I'll just open up another terminal tab, and I'll su as zebra, and type in the password. And it's warning me that my password will expire in 3 days, and that's because we gave that 14-day heads up, and we're within that threshold. Another thing that I want to show you is that I won't be able to change my password until at least tomorrow because of what it says right here. So if I want, then I can go ahead and try running password and then just typing in my password. So that's like so. And it says you must wait longer to change your password. Okay, so that makes sense. So just to demo what it would look like if it actually did work, what I can do is change the date to a time in the future. We'll do that a couple of times so that we can see what happens. So what I'll do first is just run time-date-ctl set-ntp0, and this will make sure that it doesn't automatically revert my changes. Don't do this on the exam, by the way. It would probably be really irrelevant unless they're telling you to disable NTP. I'm just doing this so that I can change the date to something arbitrary. Okay, so then I'll run time-date-ctl-set time, and I'll do something like 2023 02-17, so that's supposed to be tomorrow in Universal. And now if I go back over here and try to run password, and I'll just type it in, it's allowing me to change my password. Pretty cool. So I'll just change it, why not? There we go, and everything worked out pretty well. Cool. So, yeah. Another thing that I'd like to show you is what it would look like if the password expires. So if I check chage-l zebra, so the password expire date is the 20th. So that means that if I set the date to the 21st, then we won't be able to log into this account. So the 20th is actually the last day that you can use this password, basically. So if I go back to my root session and set this to the 21st, and then go back over here and try to log in as Zebra again, it says you're required to change your password immediately. Okay, so that makes sense. And so, yeah, then you would just be able to change your password again. So I'm going to cancel that because what I want to show you next is what it would look like if you cross the inactivity threshold. So that would just be 5 more days into the future onto the 25th. So we can do that next. So I'll go back over here and set it to the 25th. And now, I'll just clear the screen. If I try to log in as Zebra and then just do my password. Okay, so it looks like I actually have to do it one more day in the future. Sorry about that. The 26th. My bad. And yeah, so I'll try to log in as Zebra. And it says, this account has expired. Please contact your sysadmin. Okay, so yeah, that all makes sense. That's how the account inactivity goes into expire mode. Yeah, so I hope that helped clarify that. It was a little bit difficult for me to understand inactivity for a while, so yeah. And just to be clear, when we're talking about inactivity, while I'm at it, there isn't a mechanism in the shadow file that can figure out if you're actually using your account. The inactivity thing is just concerned with the password policy. Okay, so we know that by moving the clock forward, it's going to lock us out. And we can also check chage again, chage-l zebra, and we can see that we have crossed both of these thresholds. But we did not cross this one, we're just locked out because of this one. So if I went ahead and I'll just show you this next, I can set this value to never, just like it used to be before, by running chage dash or zebra and then inactive -1. So -1 actually will set one of these options to never. So I'll just run that and show you again. So now it's set to never. And that means that we should be able to log in as Zebra again, albeit we'll need to change our password. So yeah, it's letting us in, but we need to change our password. That's fine. So I'll just do that. Whoops. And if you're wondering why it asks for your current password after you just typed it in, that's because it's going to compare it with the new password to make sure that you're not repeating it. So that always makes things harder for me, of course. There we go. And yeah, so now we're able to log back in as Zebra. Okay, one more thing is just the expiry date. So if I set a date in the future, like March 11th, then let's see here. Try to log in as Zebra. It says your account has expired again. And yeah, so now we're definitely not able to log in. So I hope that clarified a lot. We definitely went through it bit by bit. That always helps. And so, of course, if you were following along with me, make sure to go ahead and set your NTP back to normal. So I can just do set NTP 1, and this will get the date back up to speed in a moment. So just wait a second. There we go. Yeah, so that'll just make sure that everything's correct again. Yeah, so what we'll do next is move into how we can set system-wide password expiry defaults. So this is pretty easy. We're just going to edit the etc login.defs file. And before we get into this one, I'd like you to acknowledge this part up top about PAM, or the Pluggable Authentication Module, which handles some of the work that basically happens in the background when you're dealing with passwords. So what it's saying over here is that not every option in this login.defs file may actually make a difference because it's handled by PAM instead. Anyways, I'll just move down here a little bit, maybe a little bit more until I get to this part. And so yeah, the distribution maintainers were kind enough to leave out that min length option, which is irrelevant these days with PAM. But all of these are still useful. This pass max days, pass min days, and pass worn age. If we change these will be the values that'll be set on new accounts that we create. So what we can do, in fact, is just set something like, we'll set pass max days to something like 120 days. That sounds pretty reasonable. And then pass min days, we'll set that to 7. And then pass worn age, we'll set that to 30 days ahead of time. Okay, and so now if I save this, and then I guess I'll go ahead and create another account, user add, and I'll call this one bear. If I chage-l bear, we'll see here that those settings that we just did in login.defs have taken effect. So this new account is going to allow you to change the password 7 days at a time. The minimum number of days is 120, and the worn days is 30. So yeah, pretty cool. So I hope that all made sense. And so we've basically reached the end of the video, but I just want to show you some stuff now that I think is cool while we're talking about password policies. So first, if you remember from the shadow file, I'll just go ahead and pull up that grep command again. You'll see here that the password change date is actually recorded as the number of days since January 1st, 1970. So we know that we can use the date command to get the number of seconds since 1970 by doing a %s in the format. So for example, we can go ahead and grab the April Fool's 2020 in epoch seconds by just doing date-d 2020 0401 and then plus %s. That should work out fine. So that's the number of seconds. And as we already know, there's 86,400 seconds in a day, right? So we can just calculate that as well. It would just be expr and then 24, 60 seconds. Yeah, so 86,400. So we can get the number of days for this value if we really wanted to, instead of being reasonable and using chage. We can get the number of days by just doing a division. So expr and then this number of seconds, and then dividing that by 86,400. And there we go. So if I went ahead and just punched in 18353 into etc shadow, let's just go down here. So what was it? 18353. I'll write that, save and quit. And now if I run chage-l zebra, you can see here that it's set to April Fool's. Pretty funny. But another thing that I want to show you, of course, is before I finish off the video, is pwquality.conf. So I'll just open that up. So it's in /etc security. It's called pwquality.conf. And so in here, as you can see, this is how PAM handles password quality control. I just want to expose you to this because this is how you would enforce rules on how good the password should be when a user tries to reset theirs. For example, the default length, the default minimum length is 8 characters, but we could go ahead and change that to something like 12 by adding a file in pwquality.conf.d, and I'll just make something called myrules.conf. why not? And then I can just type in min length equals 12 characters. And that should work out just fine. And now if I go over to another terminal and try to reset my password, so I'll do this on the admin account this time. I'll just type in my current password and then a new one. It says bad password, it's shorter than 12 characters. So yeah, I just thought it would be nice to know about that as well while we're at it. And that's really all I have to say for this video. It was a delight to walk through all of this stuff. I know the video has gotten pretty long. And as always, of course, thanks for watching.